If you've been a fan of this channel for some time, then you know all about Sky Battles and the damage it caused way back in X and Y. Many Pokemon were irrevocably blemished without the assistance of fan mods to restore them to their former glory. At least until now. Maybe. For the first time since X and Y, it looks like many Pokemon who were most brutalized by Sky Battles, Salamence and Tropius to name a few, will revert back to a grounded state, freed from the confines of their strings that left them dangling helplessly in midair. As you can see here, Salamence is grounded and no longer in its usual awkward levitating state. One could argue that this is just its Meet Idle animation, and that it reverts back to its lifeless, levitating pose once in battle. Fair enough. Normally I would be inclined to agree, but there is evidence to suggest that that is not the case. Tropius has normally been seen dangling from strings since the 3DS era, until it was blipped out of existence during the Nat Dex culling, only for its desecrated corpse to be defiled further by being resurrected for a bad Gen 4 remake. Things are different in Scarlet and Violet though, as Tropius can be seen in battle using a grounded attack animation. This is pretty huge since the implications are that if one Pokemon has been changed in this manner, that makes it reasonably possible others may follow suit. Like our good old friend Salamence, for instance. Another Pokemon that potentially finds its footing, and one of my all-time faves that I'm so happy to see back, is Eelektross, who also found itself Thanos snapped out of existence alongside Tropius in Sword and Shield, but at last makes its triumphant return in Gen 9 looking absolutely amazing. Just how I remember it from the black and white days of old. Even if this is too good to be true, rest assured that modders are always on standby, ready, willing, and able to jump in and pick up the slack by making adjustments wherever and whenever necessary, which is great for those of us who can take advantage of what they have to offer. On a side note, we recently got a better look at more standard trainer battles within Scarlet and Violet that shed a light on some promising stuff. In one of my previous videos I touched on how there is compelling evidence to suggest that Pokemon will maintain their true scale within the overworld. There is now sufficient evidence to also support that being the case in battles as well. Here is Vanilla Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and here is BDSP with the True Scale mod. Notice how Rotom is smaller in stature with the True Scale mod enabled due to Game Freak and by extension ILCA, increasing its size for whatever reason. Now, let's head over to Scarlet and Violet and notice how Rotom is quite small and is more similar in appearance to modded BDSP than the bastardizations that Game Freak has been pumping out for the past decade. Also notice the placement of the Pokemon themselves. They're much farther apart now. Game Freak has finally realized, after all this time, that they have lots of space to work with that they have been neglecting for reasons unknown. You could make a case for when Pokemon was still on the 3DS, as the screens were inherently smaller, but that flew completely out the window with the shift to a home console. Maybe it was to preserve the Game Boy angle that I've talked about before in the past, but that can still be seen even in Scarlet and Violet, despite the Pokemon being farther apart, just with a slightly different angle to account for the increased distance. The main reason the distance of the Pokemon is significant is because it too supports the very real possibility of true scale in Scarlet and Violet. The issue with keeping the Pokemon so suffocatingly close together is that the larger Pokemon tend to smother those in front of them due to their sheer size, as you can see here in BDSP with the True Scale enabled. This issue is completely circumvented if adequate breathing room is given for each Pokemon, which is exactly what can be seen in Scarlet and Violet. I will quickly mention a peculiarity regarding the UI in Scarlet and Violet. First off, it appears that the UI has received a fresh coat of paint, looking a lot more cohesive compared to the amateur, bare-bones aesthetic of the earlier trailer. What's interesting is the HP placement of the opposing Pokemon. It seems to vary depending on whether it's a wild battle or a trainer battle. I believe a first for the series. Something I found amusing was Game Freak attempting to explain the effects of Cloth's new ability, Anger Shell, while inadvertently highlighting the core issue with the Pokemon battle system as a whole. It's extremely clunky and outdated. In order for Game Freak to demonstrate simple stat buffs and debuffs, it requires 6 individual screenshots, as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 to show the ability activating, followed by its effect on the Pokemon. This perfectly illustrates the antiquated nature of the battle system that appears unaddressed even in Scarlet and Violet. It's such a simple problem with an even simpler solution. Simply include the affected stats near the name of the Pokemon in question, similar to what can be seen in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And hell, even Pokemon Showdown does it infinitely better with basic text bubbles. Like, instead of doing this, why not instead do this? And to avoid any ambiguity, you could do as I mentioned earlier and add the affected stats plainly on the UI for the player to see. Boom. Part of the problem instantly solved. The clunky battle system issue is also exemplified when it comes to multi-hit attacks, which, surprise surprise, functions in Scarlet and Violet exactly how it did in past titles. In fact, it's so bad that even the trailer had to have several cuts for Bullet Seed just to speed things along. It's honestly unbelievable how modern Pokemon games in 2022 handle multi-hit attacks about as well as the original Game Boy did in the 90s. Just let that sink in. I've talked about this particular issue at length in the video to your right that you can check out, but to sum it up, multi-hit attacks are handled in probably the worst way possible, and they grind the pacing of any given match down to a screeching halt, despite, once again, being a simple problem with an even simpler solution. These seemingly innocuous inconveniences may appear inconsequential on the surface. Some might even refer to them as nitpicks. What those who readily dismiss nitpicks fail to realize, though, is that the main problem isn't any one smaller issue in isolation, but when the nitpicks coalesce into a much bigger problem that can't be ignored, despite Game Freak's impressive ability to do so thus far. Finally, to throw Scarlet and Violet a bone, the new particle effects look to be straight out of Square Enix's book, which is to say, it looks pretty sweet. You honestly can never have too many particle effects. While the light show is pretty to look at, I can't help but feel my Switch will want to explode based on the heavy drop in FPS observed in the trailers. Hopefully Game Freak is able to polish and optimize a bit more before the game drops, but I won't be holding my breath. Anyways, that's all I got for now. More vids to come, so stay tuned. What do you guys think about the potential official end of the Sky Battle tragedy? Feel free to share your thoughts down below as I read every single comment, and as always, I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. Till next time.